Did you know there was a Ghost Rider game heavily inspired by Devil May Cry, or an action-adventure Blade game for the PlayStation 1? How about an X-Men fighting game not made by Capcom? Well, out of all those Marvel games that no one seems to remember, I believe that Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy is easily one of the best. So buckle up, because today we're going to a galaxy far, far away from the mainstream Marvel games. Guardians of the Galaxy might just be the gem you didn't know you were missing. I think it's important that we also talk about Avengers. Well, there is not much to say about that game that you guys don't know. The game was very expensive to make, the game was full of microtransactions, it was buggy, it was grindy, it was a live service. It was something no one asked for. I think in the end people will remember the game as a huge cash grab, but I'm sure most of you guys already know that. But what I really want to discuss here is the damage Avengers did to the Marvel brand. Basically, there was a before and after Marvel Avengers, and Guardians of the Galaxy was probably the biggest casualty of Marvel Avengers. The game was shown for the first time, a few months before release in 2021 during E3, and the reaction to the reveal was very underwhelming. Initially, people were unsure about what this game was supposed to be. Looter game, is it relate to Marvel Avengers? The trailer came out of nowhere, and it didn't do a good job of setting itself apart from Marvel Avengers. Most gamers were worried about the quality of the project, not only because it was a new Marvel game, but because it was another game being published by Square Enix. So gamers had no real reason to trust this new project. This implies that the game was pretty much doomed from the start. Even though it wasn't exactly made by the same team, Avengers was developed by Crystal Dynamics with a collaboration from Eidos Montreal, while Guardians was made entirely by Eidos Montreal. Yes, this game was made by the same people behind Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. The game was released in October 2021, and it was met with positive reactions from both critics and gamers. And with that out of the way, we can finally start talking about why you need to play this game. Guardians of the Galaxy is a story-driven action-adventure game where the narrative takes the lead and entirely shapes every aspect of the gameplay. From the combat to the exploration, it's all built around the story of Peter Quill and the Guardians of the Galaxy. The story unfolds across a 16 to 18 hours journey across the entire galaxy, and be prepared for cutscenes, because they make almost 1/3 of your playtime. To my surprise, some of the decisions you make end up shaping your adventure. I want to keep this review spoiler free, but early on you have to make a choice between Groot and Rocket, and depending on who you pick, you will experience a completely different version of the next chapter. While not every decision creates massive new scenarios, I appreciate the developers for going the extra mile and letting players actively participate in the adventure by making small decisions. And for me, well, what's here is enough to justify replaying the game. There is a
Well, I think Groot's more convincing, in the traditional monster sense. Groot, buddy, first of all, thank you. And second of all, I want you to know we're gonna bust you out of there right after, okay?
I am Groot.
There is a fantastic synergy between the original and licensed tracks that really helps to enhance the emotional beats of the story and intensifying the action. On top of that, there is a fictional band called Star-Lord that was created just for this game, so you can really tell how much love was put into creating this game. In a gaming landscape often filled with planned open world, season passes, microtransactions, or live service component, it's almost a miracle to see a developer, the commitment to deliver a linear single player experience. This is pretty much the opposite of Marvel Avengers, and I want to encourage more AAA developers to follow the example of Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy.
Some kind of morphing nano or sorcery.
Here we go again.
At first glance, the combat looks like a standard third-person shooter, but there is a lot more to this game combat than just shooting. You only control Peter, but you can give orders to each of your teammates to perform different actions. For example, Groot is really useful for pinning down enemies, while Rocket is great for crowd control, so you can use Groot to keep a group of enemies in place, while Rocket throws a bomb to kill them all. Each Guardian, including Quill, can learn up to 4 different powers, so you always have to keep an eye on the action and the cooldowns of your teammate. On top of that, Peter can use different elements like ice and fire. The key here is learning when to use each guardian power at the right time, and to be honest, it can feel overwhelming at first, but by the end of the combat you'll feel like a total badass using all 5 guardian powers. So if the combat doesn't feel right at first, I promise you it will all make sense after a few hours. There are a lot of mechanics here. A perfect dodge that can slow down time, melee combat, enemy weakness that you can exploit with different elements, a momentum bar that keeps track of your performance in battle. You can also turn off your brain and pretend this is a standard third-person shooter and just shoot everything, but be warned that enemies can feel like bullet sponges. Luckily for you, the game offers a bunch of accessibility options that let you customize things like how much damage you take and how much damage you can deal, how quickly your guardian powers can recover, and how much time is going to slow down every time you try to use a guardian power.
Guys, huddle up!
My favorite mechanic is called the huddle, which is pretty much an ultimate attack that you can unleash after filling up a bar by engaging in combat. This power up is going to resurrect all the fallen guardians and give them a boost or not, depending on if you say the right words. And this is literally just a 30-second cutscene for a power up, which sounds lame at first. Like, imagine if you were playing something like DMC and every time you wanted to activate the devil trigger you had to watch a 30-second cutscene. Doesn't sound fun, right? Well, here it really works in the context of this game because it really feels like you are, a coach cheering up the entire team, and it really lets you immerse yourself.
Okay in there? Think you could open the door for a minute?
What?
Is that my toothbrush? Great. Now I need a new toothbrush.
Exploration in this game is presented in 2 different ways. One will on the Milano, where you can interact with the rest of the Guardians, and the other will on a planet or a mission. Here you are going to solve puzzles, fight enemies, find hidden collectibles and costumes. The first type of exploration on the Milano reminds me a lot of the Mass Effect games, and for the most part is entirely optional. However, I found myself interested in talking with each Guardian about their recent events every time I returned to the ship. The second type is more standard action game fare. You basically follow a linear path and try to keep an eye out for alternative paths. The first thing you are going to notice when exploring is that these characters, they never ever shut up. And that's a good thing. It really lets you immerse yourself in the story. For example, characters usually make comments while you search for collectibles and they start questioning what is Quill even doing, and that's a very nice touch.
What it's worth, I think you're doing great. As good an arresting officer as I've ever had.
How many have you had?
Not that many.
Are you seriously trying to sneak away on me right now? You literally just said I was doing great.
And the best thing is that you can participate in some of those conversations. The game usually gives you 2 dialogue options to engage in conversation with our guardians. Your main reward for exploring is materials that you can use to unlock new perks for Quill. These include things like more health, the ability to fire a target shot, which I think I barely use that, slowing down time after a perfect dodge, and even a gimmick that helps you find more components. While exploring, you can find costumes, and boy, some of those look amazing. They even show during cutscenes. There are even MCU uniforms. Drax, he looks fantastic. And there are collectibles that you can find while exploring, and interacting with them in the Milano is going to lead to a conversation with a Guardian. These conversations give you more information about the stories of each Guardian. Puzzles, for the most part, are super easy to solve, and they boil down to just picking the right Guardian. For example, see a small vent, use Rocket. See a heavy object, just use Drax. And they exist, just to spice things up. Platforming is also straightforward. You have a double jump and a dash that you can use to move around, and you can take control of the Milano like 3 times during the story. These segments are usually fun and they don't overstay their welcome, which kind of makes me wish there were more moments where you take control of the Milano. I don't even know where to start with the presentation, but this game is jaw-dropping. The art style, the animations, the voice acting, the soundtrack, everything is absolutely stunning. It's been a long time since I found myself standing in a game, simply looking around and admiring the visuals, but Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy managed to evoke that awe-inspiring feeling. Each planet you explore is a joy to watch, from the enemies, the breathtaking scenery, and the weather. Everything feels unique. Something that deserves special mention is a masterful use of animations that bring the characters to life. They infuse each character with personality. This level of detail allows players to truly immerse themselves in the story and form emotional connections with the character. For example, I never cared about Drax, but this game, man, this game, I really wanted to give Drax a hug. And this is very important because, well, like I told you before, Drax is a character known for not talking much. Here, every single line spoken by Drax feels meaningful. Like, those interactions with Drax, for me, they feel like one of the highlights of the experience. Well, friends, we reached the end of the video. I can't help but think that a sequel will be fantastic to further expand on the game systems, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Like I told you before, the game received positive reactions from both gamers and critics. However, Square Enix said that it didn't meet their sales expectation. This is pretty much telling me that, much like Avengers, the game was quite expensive to make, and Square Enix was relying on Guardians to be a top seller to recover some of the budget. To put things in perspective, Avengers and Guardians resulted in a $200 million loss for Square Enix, and yes, that's a lot of money. Regardless of everything, Disney would like to work again with Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal. This leaves the door open for more quality projects like Guardians of the Galaxy. People want more Guardians and less Avengers. Hopefully, this was a lesson learned for both Square Enix and Marvel. And that's it for today, my friends. I hope you all get a chance to play this game and enjoy it as much as I did. If you already played, feel free to join the discussion by leaving a comment with your thoughts on the game. Thanks for watching, and I wish you a great rest of your day. See you guys soon.